everyone in the session of configuration topology part 1. My name is Kedar Dandekar and I am a Cisco certified internet network expert in enterprise infrastructure. So if you have any question, then please feel free to mail me on kedargandekar@nittraining.in. So today we will be configuring the data center switches. So in data center total we have 4 switches. So switch 3, switch 4, switch 5 and switch 6. Okay, so before we configure all these 4 switches, first we will discuss the pre-configuration that we have done on all these switches. So here you can see that total 4 switches are there, and also there are some VLANs here. Okay, so in data center there are some VLANs, VLAN 173, 34, 184, 164, 156, 153. Okay, and also there is VLAN 100 here. Okay, so in my LAN there is VLAN 100 here. Okay, so all this VLAN configuration I have already done on the switches. Okay, and also the IP addressing is done. All the interfaces for all the VLANs has been created. So if I show you, show IP INT brief. So here you can see that the interfaces for all the VLANs has been created, and also the IP addressing is done for all the VLAN interfaces. Now our first requirement is that access port must immediately transition to the forwarding state upon link up, as long as they do not receive the BPDU. And for that now we have to use the unique command per switch to enable this feature. And then if the access port receives a BPDU, it must automatically get shut down. So for that now we have to configure the port fast and BPDU guard on all the 4 switches. So let's start with switch 3. So on switch 3, spanning dash 3 port fast edge default, spanning dash 3 port fast edge BPDU guard default. Same command on all the remaining 3 switches. Spanning dash 3 port fast edge default, spanning dash 3 port fast edge BPDU guard default. Now switch 6 also. So we have configured the port fast and BPDU guard on all the 4 switches. Now after that we have to configure the trunking. So all the inter switch link must be configured using a .1q encapsulation. Also we have to ensure that all the 4 switches must send and receive the untagged frame for VLAN 1. So VLAN 1 is by default our native VLAN only. So by default switch 1 will send all the messages, all the frames for VLAN 1 as a untag only. So VLAN 1 is our native VLAN. Okay, so only thing is that we have to configure the inter switch link, for that they can use the .1q encapsulation. So for that now here we can see that my switch 3 interfaces E1/0 and E1/1 are connected to switch 5, same E1/0 and E1/1. Same here between switch 4 and switch 6 my interfaces are connected is E1/0 and E1/1, and between switch 3 and switch 4 my interfaces are E2/0 and E2/1. So we have to configure all these interfaces into the trunking mode. So let's start with switch 3. So interface range E1/0-1 and E2/0-1. Switch port trunk encapsulation .1q switch port mode trunk. Now switch 4 interfaces are same, interface range E1/0-1 and E2/0-1. Switch port trunk encapsulation .1q switch port mode trunk. Now switch 5, my switch 5 interfaces are E1/0 and E1/1, which is connected to switch 3. So switch port trunk encapsulation .1q switch port mode trunk. Now switch 6, same interfaces E1/0 and E1/1, which is connected to switch 4, switch port trunk encapsulation .1q and switch port mode trunk. So we have done the trunking configuration on all the 4 switches. Now if we verify it on switch 3, so here you can see that, show interfaces trunk. So here you can see that my switch 3 interfaces E1/0, E1/1, E2/0 and E2/1, all these interfaces are into the trunking mode, and native VLAN is 1. Okay, same thing on switch 4, show interfaces trunk. Here also my switch 4 interfaces E1/0, E1/1, E2/0 and E2/1 all are into the trunking state, and native VLAN is 1, all are into the trunking mode. Now after that we have to configure all the 4 switches so that they maintain a separate spanning tree instance for each VLAN. Also the spanning tree must immediately delete dynamically learned MAC address entries on per port basis upon receiving a topology change. That means now here we have to configure the rapid PVST. And now third requirement is that switch 3 must be root switch for all the VLANs and switch 4 must be backup root switch for all the VLANs. And now here we have to ensure that they both have the best chances of maintaining their respective role even if any new normal VLAN range is added into the future. So that if we added some new VLAN in future, so for that VLAN also switch 3 must be root switch and switch 4 must be backup root switch. Okay, so let's start the configuration. First we will configure the rapid PVST on all the switches. So spanning dash tree mode, rapid PVST. So we have to enable this on all the switches, RSTP, switch 5 and switch 6. So we have configured the rapid PVST on all the 4 switches. Now the requirement is that switch 3 must be root switch for all the VLANs, and also if we add some new VLANs in the future, then for that VLAN also switch 3 must be root switch. So here we will give the command spanning dash tree VLAN 1 to 1005. So we will match all the VLANs here and we will set the priority to 0. That means now for all the VLANs switch 3 will be root switch. Also if we add some new VLANs in the future, then for that VLAN also switch 3 will be a root switch. Now switch 4 will be a backup root switch. So for that now same thing, from VLAN 1 to 1005 we will set a priority to 4096. Okay, now if we verify on the switch 3, so if we verify the spanning tree instance, so spanning dash tree, so here we can see that for all the VLANs. So here if we see for all the VLANs, VLAN 1 switch 3 is the root bridge. Same thing for VLAN 34, switch 3 is the root bridge. For VLAN 100, switch 3 is the root bridge. Same for 101, switch 3 is the root bridge. So for all the VLANs, my switch 3 is the root bridge. Okay. So my switch 3 has been configured as a root bridge. Now if we verify on switch 4, so spanning tree instance on switch 4, so we can see that for every VLAN, my priority value has been configured to 4096. So here you can see that for VLAN 1, priority is 4096. For every VLAN, my priority is 4096. So this is my backup root switch. For every VLAN, my priority is 4096. Okay, so we have done the configuration also here. So thanks for watching the video. If you have any question, then please feel free to mail me on kedar@nat.training.in. Thank you.